plunges off a bridge in the Arizona desert, evidence suggests possible domestic terrorists. Another key Senate Democrat calls it quits. Bob Schieffer reports on the shifting balance of power on Capitol Hill. And Eye on America. As the Simpson camera comes down, a new debate over cameras in any courtroom.
This is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
Good evening. 6 months after the Oklahoma City bombing, officials are investigating what could be another case of domestic terror aimed at innocent Americans. Sometime after 1 this morning, an Amtrak passenger train derailed and plunged off a bridge in southwestern Arizona. Officials say someone had tampered with the tracks, and evidence points to possible terrorists. Our coverage begins with John Blackstone at the crash site in the Arizona desert.
It was on a trestle over a dry riverbed that the Amtrak Sunset Limited, traveling from Miami to Los Angeles, jumped the track. The train derailed early this morning as most passengers were sleeping.
We looked out and we saw that half of the train was missing.
I was sleeping with the back of my head against the bulkhead, and wham, and then really wham.
What followed was a story of mutual assistance among the 268 on board. Passengers helped each other. There was little panic and lots of comfort.
Everybody was helping everybody. I didn't have time to be scared. Not until we got out, then I got scared.
For a half hour or more in the desert darkness, those in the train were on their own. At least 78 were injured. One was killed. The first rescuers arrived by helicopter.
I'm just praying, I'm happy, I'm fine. It could have been a lot worse.
As investigators came on the scene, it became apparent this derailment was no accident. 29 spikes that hold the rails in place had been pulled out. The location appears to have been chosen to make rescue as difficult as possible. This remote part of the Arizona desert, called the Signal Mountain Wilderness, is 30 miles from the nearest paved road. One of the surprises here is that the rescue went so smoothly. In a nation where the idea of a terrorist attack once seemed remote, it now appears that no place is so remote as to be absolutely safe. John Blackstone, CBS News, Signal Mountain Wilderness, Arizona.
This is Bob Orr in Washington. Whoever sabotaged the Sunset Limited knew exactly how to do it. In addition to the tie spikes, bolts and brackets which hold lengths of railroad track together had been removed, the rails jimmied apart, and the electronic alarm system along the rails, designed to alert train crews to broken tracks ahead, was bypassed by a jumper wire which blocked any warning.
This was not vandalism, this was terrorism, because the difference is that when the signal wires are reconnected, the intention was to send the train into the ravine and kill a lot of people.
Amtrak officials said the terrorists clearly were going after people. The remote section of track targeted is used almost exclusively by passenger trains.
I find it despicable that anyone would jeopardize the lives of Amtrak passengers and crew for whatever purpose, and I don't care what the purpose was.
Sources tell CBS News the purpose may be found in 2 notes discovered at the crash site. Addressed to the FBI and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the notes imply this act was in retribution for the federal siege at the Branch Davidian compound at Waco. One source says the notes call the derailment a payback to the ATF, not an accident. The notes are signed by a group calling itself the Sons of Gestapo.
I would say it's a companion piece to Oklahoma City, and definitely connected to Waco and the way the ATF handled that.
Authorities say they have no knowledge of the group Sons of Gestapo, which claims responsibility for the sabotage. But Arizona has been a hotbed for white extremists. Still, investigators caution anyone, including a disgruntled employee, could be behind this act of terrorism. Bob Orr, CBS News, Washington.
A killer earthquake along Mexico's Pacific coast. That story just ahead. Also, a CBS Evening News reality check on politics, money, and Medicare. And NATO airstrikes pound defiant Serb gunners on the eve of what was supposed to be a U.S. brokered ceasefire in Bosnia.
So? He said he wants more control. Oh, boy. Told me he's looking for faster response and more security.
Then he's leaving the firm?
No. He's getting a Cadillac DeVille.
Now DeVille is better than ever because now it has the North Star system and its extraordinary combination of comfort, safety, security, and performance. Nothing else feels like DeVille from Cadillac.
I suppose you'll want a better parking space, too.
Where you been?
We want to eat.
Well, I was over there talking to old Charlie.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Gentlemen, start your pitchers.
Kellogg's Rice Krispies in stereo.
Snap, crackle, and pop, plus that crisp, toasted taste.
Now for the best part. Make them disappear.
What other cereal sounds so good?
Another deadly earthquake has hit Mexico. It struck this morning close to a string of villages along the Pacific coast. It shook buildings 300 miles away in Mexico City and was felt as far away as Texas and Oklahoma. Damage was slight in major Mexican cities, but at least 29 people are known to have been killed in smaller towns. Dozens more were injured. Today's quake measured 7.5 on the Richter scale, the second most powerful to hit Mexico in the last month. It struck on a fault line that runs along Mexico's Pacific coast, the site of repeated tremors over the last year. Off Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, yet another tropical storm is gaining strength tonight, with top winds already near 65 miles an hour. Tropical Storm Roxanne marks the first time the National Hurricane Center has reached the letter R in its annual alphabetical list of names. A ceasefire was supposed to begin tonight in Bosnia, but it will apparently have to wait for another round of war. NATO planes today retaliated against Serb targets in northeastern Bosnia following a series of attacks on civilians and UN peacekeepers. And in Sarajevo, peace is still only a promise. Correspondent Alan Pizzi is there.
The lights were supposed to be on in Sarajevo tonight. They weren't. One reason why there is still no ceasefire. The electricity will be back soon, but gas supplies will take longer. And the Bosnian government is insisting that gas, water, and electricity be restored before they stop shooting.
If there is no improvement with utilities, there will be no ceasefire.
The UN tonight urged restraint by all parties and warned that today's airstrikes could be repeated. But atrocities like the shelling of refugees by Bosnian Serbs over the weekend, which left 15 people dead and more than 100 wounded, were not punished by NATO airstrikes. The planes came because one UN peacekeeper was killed. Nonetheless, all sides seem confident a ceasefire can be agreed. When it comes, this ceasefire will be the 35th officially recorded in the Bosnian War. The difference this time is that it's been brokered by the U.S. and it's backed by promises from the West for plenty of money for all sides to start rebuilding if it turns into real peace. The basics of reconstruction began in the belief that the conditions for the ceasefire would be met, cleaning out the tram lines, reconnecting wires. And some things have already improved. There's more food in stores, prices are down, and hope is up, just a little. I think the ceasefire will work, this man says. But the UN has reports that Serbs are still conducting ethnic cleansing of Muslims.
We don't really think that the ceasefire is going to change anything for the minorities in the Banja Luka region. These people are being brutally expelled, and they will continue to be brutally expelled.
The UN says it can do nothing to stop the Serbs, another reason why people here have learned to count only on themselves. They're getting ready for another winter under siege conditions, ceasefire or not. Alan Pizzi, CBS News, Sarajevo.
2 Americans won the Nobel Prize for Medicine today. Edward Lewis and Eric Vichos shared the prize with a German scientist. They were honored for discoveries about how genes control the early development of an embryo, discoveries that help explain birth defects.
Do you believe this? It's a dairy wonderland. But Dairy and I just don't get along. If I eat this cheese, it'll do a real number on my stomach. But it's no problem now, because before I eat dairy, I take Lactaid.
Lactaid is the first supplement that works naturally to make dairy foods more digestible.
Pardon me, there's no more cheesecake.
Lactaid, for the love of dairy.
I just have to have my cheesecake.
Thanks to Sprint Business, now the world
is flat. Introducing flat rate pricing for small businesses on all your long distance, even for Sprint 800 service. Enhanced fax and cellular long distance. One low flat rate for everything all over the country, so you know just what you're paying.
Now that's simple.
Call now for flat rate pricing. 1-800-827-3700. Call Sprint Business.
When was the last time you played in the rain? Let your hair go wild. Flexed your muscles to the world. Stayed up past your bedtime. When was the last time you really had fun in a car? Riviera by Buick. Go ahead. Express yourself.
No whites, no women, but 1 million black men, all marching on Washington. Guess whose plan that is?
You may not like me, but I'm not trying to win no popularity contest.
If you thought you could ignore Louis Farrakhan, you can't afford to ignore this Eye on America, whoever you are. Tomorrow on the CBS Evening News.
Another veteran member of the U.S. Senate today joined the growing crowd of Democrats in Congress to call it quits for re-election. The latest is Senator Sam Nunn of Georgia. Chief Washington correspondent Bob Schieffer reports on the political impact.
What's the biggest problem y'all got over here right now?
Sam Nunn became such an expert on defense that Republican and Democratic presidents sought his advice and dreaded his opposition, as when he blocked George Bush's plan to make John Towers Secretary of Defense and forced Bill Clinton to rethink his plan for gays in the military.
You afraid there'd be violence? Yes, sir, I do.
Nunn's stature was such that even Republican Senate colleagues urged him to run again, but today in Atlanta he confirmed what had been rumored. He won't.
I have concluded that my rewarding and fulfilling legislative career should end at the conclusion of my present term.
He was optimistic, he said, about America, but lamented how modern politics has become an endless grind that emphasizes the wrong things.
Too much of the time and efforts of members of Congress are consumed by fundraising efforts. The ability to raise big money and buy saturation television ads has become the dominant theme of our political races.
The announcement made a bad year for the Democratic Party even worse. Nunn is the 8th Senate Democrat to announce his retirement, a list that already included Simon of Illinois, Pryor of Arkansas, Exxon of Nebraska, Heflin of Alabama, Johnston of Louisiana, Pell of Rhode Island, and Bradley of New Jersey. Two others, Campbell of Colorado and Shelby of Alabama, had already switched to the Republican Party, and today political analysts said that added up to more than just short-term trouble for Democrats.
That's 18 Democrats have voluntarily left the Senate in the last 3 years. That's an amazing number. I mean, that's like a hemorrhage, and it could be 1998, 2000, 2002 before they could reclaim a majority with the way the Senate seats are stacking up now.
Nunn cited no overriding reason for leaving, but clearly he's weary of the partisan bickering and the mean campaigns. He says now he wants more time to read and write and think. Today's politics, of course, leaves little time for things like that. Bob Schieffer, CBS News at the Capitol.
The House Ways and Means Committee held a holiday session today to wrangle over the 400-page Republican plan to overhaul Medicare. One key proposal would let Medicare recipients opt for something called a medical savings account, or MSA, a sort of medical individual retirement account. It's a controversial idea. President Clinton has called it radical, so you may be wondering how it got included in the Republican plan. You can start with a company calling itself Golden Rule, which apparently did unto others with an open wallet for the politically connected. Eric Ingberg has tonight's CBS Evening News reality check.
The stampede by Republicans to anoint medical savings accounts as a miracle solution owes much to one businessman's well-financed political crusade. J. Patrick Rooney, head of Indiana's Golden Rule Insurance, pioneered selling MSA-type plans.
Employers, you'll be amazed how this cuts the cost of group insurance.
And he organized a textbook campaign